Hello everyone and welcome to this new Loopstation tutorial. In this tutorial I will not present a specific cover of a song, but instead I will try to show you how to use the granular delay. Okay, so first of all, the granular delay is what I want to call a restricted effect, which means that you cannot use it with other restricted effects. If you don't know, the restricted effects are basically effects that you cannot use with each others, and they can be found on the A and C of both input and track FX. So, for instance, the guitar to bass is a restricted effect, which means that if you select it on the track FX A, you will not be able to use restricted effects on the track FX C. The restricted effects are shown within parentheses, which means that this effect cannot be activated if it's in parentheses. If I enable here the granular delay, it will not have any effect on the output FX. You can find the list of all restricted effects in the manual of the Loop Boss RC505, and this can only happen if you have the mode multi under the input FX and track FX settings. Okay, so let's talk about the granular delay. The granular delay is a specific delay that will not delay the whole audio of what you are trying to delay. Instead, it will make little samples, little grains that will be delayed instead of the whole audio. So that's why it's called a granular delay. And the sound of the granular delay is very noticeable. It sounds kind of like a robot voice, something like this. The granular delay sounds something like this. In the RC505, you have three parameters: the time, the feedback, and the effect level. The effect level can go from 0 to 100, and this basically is the volume of the output effect. The feedback is also a value that can go from 0 to 100. 100 means the feedback will never stop, and 0 means there is no feedback. The time, however, has an unknown unit, so I don't really know to what this number refers to, because for instance, on the other delay, you can find the time here, and if you go beyond 1000 milliseconds, you have notes that are related to the bit. It's just a value between 0 and 100. However, even if we don't know what the time stands for, we know what it does. And it's actually a note. So for instance, at time 45, the output note will be a C. How does it work? When you have a very close sound together, it makes a note. Basically, the frequency of an audio will tell you what note it will be. For instance, 440 Hz is the A note. So if you have an audio and you play it 440 times per second, the human ear will hear a A note. And this is what the time does, basically. It will reduce the time between each grains and basically creates a note from it. If you go beyond 70, you will hardly hear a specific note, more like just a normal delay. But if you go to something like 45, you will hear a C note. I will just up the feedback because else it won't be noticeable. So as I said, the 45 is a C note, and every time you go up 1 or down 1, you will change the note by 1 semitones. So because there is 12 notes inside 1 octave, if you go up or down by 12, you will have the same note but 1 octave lower or 1 octave higher. For instance, this is a C note. And this is a C note as well. The granular delay can be used in multiple ways. It is mostly used with the slicer effect, and I can demonstrate that by using the example from Trance Musical. So for instance, I have set up here an EQ for my voice and a panning delay with very basic settings, and I will do the note from Trance Musical. So these are the notes of Transmusical. In the original song, they are already sliced using the input FX B with a slicer. But here I have not sliced it to show you how it sounds. So the slicer will be on track FX B, and the pattern will be 0, 1 and this rate, and the depth of 120. So that's how it sounds. And now we will configure a granular delay on track FX C with the time of 42. This is the note of Transmusical, feedback of 50, and level of 100. Let's go. I will up the feedback a bit. And if you play with the time, and if you remember what I told you, we'll go from 42 to 2 octaves lower, which means that you add 12 to 42, which goes down to 54, and then 12 again to 66. So let's do that. And there you have it, for instance, in Transmusical. One of the key things to note with the granular delay is that it works best if the time that you provide here is the same note or a note with a harmony or of the same scale or things like that. You need to have the time with the correct note in order to produce an effect that will sound good. So for instance, if I take the robot voice and do a C note, any C note that I output with the granular delay will have a stronger effect. So for instance, with Robo, note C, gender plus 10, let's put some reverb. If I take any C note from the granular delay, basically 21, 33, 45, 57, and 69, I will get correct effect. So let's try this. As you can hear, it almost double the effect, like it's amplify the effect. It's kind of like a snowball effect where you add to a note the same note again, and so it doubles the note. Kind of, it's the basic sensation that it provides. It's not a technical description. So as I mentioned earlier, the time parameter of the granular delay can be used to create notes, which means that you can actually input notes in a track only using the time. The feedback must be above 90 to have a stronger effect and to sound kind of like a percussion or a keyboard. It sounds something like this. Here I just do a snare, a K snare, but you can also use any percussion basically in order to create a different note. For instance, hi-hats, a kick, and you can basically create any kind of note you want with any percussion or basically any sounds. So we just saw that you can create notes with a single sound, but if you put the feedback to 100, you can create a straight note, a kind of a chord, and just by changing the time, you can basically choose which chords you want to play. So for instance, in Rhythmine's last song, Against Enemy, he uses this technique to create the chords progression that goes something like this. without using the feedback to 100, you can already create very good chords or melody or just background notes using this technique. For instance, Shin used it in most of the track. Okay, so that's it for my tutorial on the granular delay. I hope you enjoyed, and I will just make a very quick bit just to show you what we can do with the granular delay.